My personal leadership style, and it's again something that I will talk to my managers about, the sous chef at Petit Louis or wherever. If I'm putting someone in a new position, I say there are certain things that you have to do. The first thing I tell a manager about how to be successful as a manager is your job is to make everyone that works with you successful. And that is culture, creating a positive culture. That is teaching. That is giving them all the equipment and everything that they need to do their job. That's it. A positive work environment that the employee has everything they need to do the job. That's your job every day. And that is the whole guiding principle, whole philosophy. My earliest influences are my family. I'm very fortunate in that my great-grandfather and grandfather had butcher shops in York, Pennsylvania. It was called Wolf Brothers most recently, and my dad grew up with that butcher shop out back of his house. So by the time he was 7 or 8 years old, he was standing on a stool stirring scrapple in the pot. My father was a master butcher by the time he was 17 years old. And then he went off into World War II. He was offered the butcher shop after he came back. His father unfortunately passed away, my grandfather, and he decided he wanted to kind of move on to a different route, but stay in the same business. So my dad ended up as an executive for 2 national chains in our country, Hardee's and Ponderosa, when they were huge chains in the 60s, 70s, and into the early 1980s. And so I grew up with a father that came home and had dinner with us every night that he wasn't traveling. And we had to sit at the dinner table until everyone was done. And I heard a lot of discussions all of my life about his business. So I learned a lot at that table, and I can't tell you how important that was for me. Along with the fact that my mother and my grandmothers on both sides of my family were great cooks. All the women in my family on both sides are great cooks, and we love food. The way I came to Baltimore is that I married a boy from Baltimore. Tony Foreman and I had opened a restaurant together in Washington, D.C. called Georgia Brown. And so that's when I met Tony. He was the general manager. I was the opening executive chef. And I came up with the food concept for the company. It was at the time called Capital Management. They had 18 restaurants, very successful restaurants. I had worked for them in their Palos concept, which there used to be 2 in Baltimore. So because of that, there was 1 in Towson and 1 in the Inner Harbor. And because of that, I was familiar with Baltimore because I troubleshooted for the company, acting as corporate chef for them, and came in and took over both of those kitchens here over a 6-week period, hired a new chef, retrained their staff, got everybody up to par, because I had been working at the flagship in Georgetown. So I was obviously very up to date with the concept, and so that made me familiar with Baltimore. So when Tony asked me to marry him, we wanted to open our own restaurant, and we were in our late 20s. And he had grown up here and said, we had talked about going out to the West Coast, wanted to be in San Francisco. So I was very concerned that I wouldn't see my mother and father at all if we moved out there, and he was too. He said, what about Baltimore? We both left our positions with Capital Management. He was actually at the time the GM of the River Club. They had moved him from Georgia Brown to the River Club because we were both sort of troubleshooters for the companies. We were both very good at fixing problems. We've been very successful here, and I'm very thankful to be here. Baltimore is a fantastic market to work in for a chef, and it's also a very bountiful area. We have the seacoast, the waterways, and we have beautiful farmland. And a chef couldn't ask for anything else. And great guests that allow me to do my best work. One of the things about my partnership with Tony is that Tony has a background in back of the house, and I have a background in the front of the house. I started off in the front of the house as a waiter. So he is the first manager I ever worked with that had a healthy respect for the back of the house. And that is what really cemented our relationship in a business way from the very beginning. So to have someone really show me respect as a chef, show my kitchen staff respect, and to be there for me, as a chef, as a leader, to support me as a leader, I was not used to that at all. I was used to more combat than I was to be supported, quite frankly. And also, he's very, very good at what he does. So we make a great partnership because we are both rounded. And also, we're both rounded in our own positions. In other words, as a chef, I'm both a business person and a creative person. And oftentimes with chefs, you find, oh, they might be a great business person, but maybe their food isn't the best, or they're not very creative, or it's, whatever. Or it's the opposite. They're extremely creative, and then, their food cost is 50%, and your business is going to go down the drain. Or they don't understand labor costs, or all the things that are associated with a profit and loss statement that makes a business operable and competitive and profitable. The way that we work together is through a team thought process and through a process of respect. So if we make big decisions, we're making them together. Hey, let's hire this person as a GM, or let's move this person up as a GM, or I'm thinking about this person for a chef's position. Any big capital repairs, capital expenses, we discuss together, and we also ask our managers to discuss with us. I made a decision when I knew we were divorcing, that I was either going to leave or I was going to stay. There was no way I was going to give up my businesses and all the other businesses. I had worked too hard to get where I was, and it's too much work to get where I was to start over again. So then it was me making a conscious decision to get along. I will do what I need to get along. And then, things ease up in your personal life and things become okay. And, you work your way through it. I've also had 3 very serious health problems. I had a very serious health problem 3 months after we opened the restaurant, and then again 10 years later, and a year ago. Actually, less than a year ago. So, I've been through a lot of personal issues, and I have always worked, and I've always just done what I needed to do to get my job done and to take care of my staff, because I love the people that work for me, particularly in my kitchen.
It was my first management job. The commitment that they had to the restaurant was obvious, and I was excited about it. And, I had come back to Baltimore to enter a serious relationship. So I thought I needed to be serious about what I was doing for my living, and they were going to run a restaurant the right way. That was clear. So I took the jump and went into management. As an hourly staff, when you're successful, you know that you step into management, you usually increase your hours and you don't necessarily increase your dollars. But the education that it offered me was incredible. I started operating the bar at the restaurant that we called Savannah, the first restaurant. Being able to manage product, oversee inventory, ordering quantities, develop the program back there, and shape 2 other bartenders. It was an amount of leadership that I hadn't had before. Chef always set a great example for how to treat the staff you're working with. You need to be there as a leader, you need to be there as a teacher, you need to be clear in what you're telling them, and you need to be supportive in their growth. I was growing at this time, but they kind of taught me how to be a teacher and a leader as much as bring me along in the industry. The way she drives the level of care for the guest has turned out to develop hundreds of guests that we just call family. And, she covers her restaurants like a mother hen, without question. And to let somebody take that title was just such an honor for her and him together. And now he's the executive chef at 2 different restaurants. Chef and I know that when we're in the middle of operations, that's what we are. And if things get heated, if things get tense, what I love about her is that there's a reason that you need to be intense. But then, almost as if it's just water falling off of a non-porous surface, that tense moment goes away. And you're back to being your offstage persona. Early on, she was a woman in a very male-dominated industry. So, she needed to be, I don't want to say inflexible. She needed to be determined. She needed to be declarative and demonstrative about values and standards and thoroughness, and the fact that she meant what she was saying. When I think about chef and this industry, I just think about, she's passionate, number one, but her level of commitment is unheralded. She kind of says it hurts her heart when she's got to be, she's got to be firm, she's got to be the hammer, so to speak. If somebody doesn't understand that, they're just not a professional. What I worry about is that this can, passion and commitment at that level can be a little overwhelming to the rest of your life. But you look at what she's created and the following that she has, And the fact that she still shows up for work on a full-time basis in the blink of an eye, and that's over the years through more than a few bits of trauma and obstacles and things like that, and she's still here. So complete respect and admiration for the level of commitment that she has here.
So where my drive comes from and how I sustain that is absolutely from the passion for cooking. I mean, I love what I do. I still stand in that kitchen in the morning, which is kind of amazing because it's the most peaceful, wonderful thing to be in a kitchen a professional kitchen by yourself. Mise en place means everything in its place in French. And I remember reading in a book when I first started going to school about how important mise en place is from the standpoint not only of having all the ingredients that you need to get a dish done and out of the kitchen, but also your brain. Your brain needs mise en place, because if you walk onto a station and there's stuff everywhere and the station's dirty and the mise en place is, up here, over there, whatever, it's not organized, your brain explodes basically. It's all about, working in the kitchen is all about discipline. It's all about discipline. So mise en place is part of the discipline. Your mental discipline is part of it. You have to be calm, cool, collected. The moment you get upset, the moment you're irritated, the moment you're scared, because you're like, oh my God, this is way too much pressure because you're a new cook and I'm calling out tickets and you're like, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. The only way you can be an excellent cook is to have excellent concentration. That's one of the reasons why we, talking about discipline, we don't talk during service in the kitchen. One, we don't want to disturb the guest. We are in a open kitchen. Two, if you're talking, you're not concentrating on what you're doing. I call to the cooks from the expo line, and they don't even have to look at a ticket. That's a distraction. All they have to do is listen to me, and I keep talking, and I try to talk calmly. I would never yell at someone that works for me. That is not disciplined. That is disruptive behavior that is completely ineffective, that destroys people and makes them ineffective, unable to do their best work, and hate you and not care about their work. The more I expect of you, the higher the threshold, that better and higher you're going to push yourself to work. And that is when you're going to be the best you can be. And I expect it every moment of every day. So I'm always thinking that way, because as far as I'm concerned, my job as the chef of this company is to hire people that I can then move into those positions and make our company successful. Because the most successful way for people to move up is to work in-house and to start from the bottom and move their way up. You can thank Tony, because I didn't want to do any more restaurants after that. I was still married when we opened Pazzo to Tony. I wanted to see my husband. I knew what would happen if we opened a third restaurant. And it manifested itself. So, it is always his idea now if we do a new restaurant. So he gets all the credit for that. But am I involved? Absolutely. Am I responsible? Absolutely. So the same discipline is in all the properties. The thought process is the same and is in all the properties from a business standpoint. We operate them all the same way. We do financial meetings all the same way. We have the same structure. CFO, pardon me. We have the same structure. Chief Financial Officer, operating officer. We don't have, and it's so weird to even say those words to me, because I think of our company as being Tony and I. I hate it when people say Foreman and Wolf, blah, blah. No, it's Tony and I. And even the staff, people have to grab a hold of something. They need to be able to say something, so the restaurant group, whatever, that's Tony and I. And we're operating restaurants. And thankfully, we have wonderful investors. And this is very personal for us. But yes, I do have a chief financial officer, who happens to be Tony's brother. When we came here, we were opening our own business. Said, no, I want to buy from all the local purveyors. So I did the research, found out who was around, started working with Lanassa Produce, bought from the grandfather, eventually bought from the father, and eventually bought from the son over a 28-year period. And Tony met all the farmers. And he immediately developed relationships with those farmers and said, hey, could you grow fava beans? Well, I don't know what that is, but I'll look into it. Or could you, grow crowder peas, which are super important to my cooking from the low country area of South Carolina. So developing those relationships has been, I mean, remarkable. We still buy from those same farmers. We buy from other farmers. So it is that relationship. I mean, it couldn't be a more important relationship for a restaurant and a farmer. I'm very thankful for this relationship. The other way we have relationships is with concierges in town, hotels in town, the visitor center, all these boards that Tony's on. So those are things that have been very important to us. And being involved in the community along with all the charity work. Tony is big with the Heart Association. I've done work with Komen and other cancer foundations. We work with all different charities. So, this is a part of being a part of the community. I do things for the right reason, and we help charities in the best way we possibly can, and we always have. I think one of the things about being in business in general is experience. And in our business, it's all about experience, which is why you should start at the bottom and work your way to the top. So I would say that has to apply to anything you do. You don't have to be in the restaurant business. Get the experience that you need. Work for someone. We all have our own philosophy. So learn from other folks, make mistakes on them, learn, and then go out and do your own thing. And do it as young as you possibly can, because you're going to need a lot of energy. It takes a lot of dedication. I love what I do. I mean, there's so many days where I stand there and I'm cooking and I'm just like, oh God, I can't believe I get to do this. I mean, it is the greatest joy, and that is what sustains me. The love for the cooking part of it, the joy for that, the interest in, that idea of slicing open I'm a very artistic person, and I love things that are beautiful, whether it's art or nature or a person or, I just love everything that's beautiful. It is entirely because of my family and my upbringing that I do what I do. It's in my blood. I'm meant to do this.